Rain fell like needles from the gray morning sky, streaking down the windshield of Veronica Hastings' black Escalade as she pulled into the cracked, puddle-filled parking lot of Westbrook Elementary. She barely noticed the uneven pavement or the faded sign near the school gate. Her mind was already at her office on the 42nd floor of the downtown high-rise where Hastings Ventures was headquartered. But today was special, for Mason, at least. In the back seat, 10-year-old Mason adjusted his brand-new backpack. His soft brown curls bounced as he leaned forward between the seats. "Mom. Are you sure this is the right place?" Veronica's eyes remained glued to her iPhone screen, scanning the last-minute updates from her assistant. "Yes, Mason. This is what the GPS says, and the lady from admissions sent me the address last night. You're all set." Mason looked out the window again. The school was different. No tall iron gates. No fountain near the entrance like the one on the brochure. The brick building looked old, like something from a 90s movie. A group of kids ran by in the rain, their backpacks sagging, jackets mismatched. Some didn't even have umbrellas. Veronica glanced up for a second and frowned. "Why are there no security cameras?" "Mom." Mason said again, his voice quieter now. Veronica blinked and forced a smile. "Sorry, sweetie. Just thinking about work. It's going to be a great day, okay? Your new school is just, simple. Humble." But, Mason started to say, but Veronica was already stepping out into the rain, holding her designer coat over her head. She opened the back door and helped him out, tucking his backpack straps firmly on his shoulders. "You look sharp," she said, brushing invisible lint off his uniform. "You're going to make so many friends. But this doesn't look like the one from the picture." "Mason," she interrupted, kissing him on the forehead. "Mommy has a very big meeting. We'll talk after school, okay?" He nodded slowly, though his eyes lingered on the building in front of him. A flash of thunder echoed in the distance. Veronica watched as he walked up to the front entrance, stepping over puddles, his small umbrella barely holding against the wind. He paused at the door, turning to look back at her, his eyes asking one last time if this was okay. She forced a reassuring wave, then ducked into the car and drove off. Back in her office 15 minutes later, Veronica's world was completely different. Plush cream carpets, a gold-accented desk, and 3 giant computer monitors dominated her space. 2 assistants stood outside her glass walls, speaking in hushed tones. Inside, she was already on her second call of the morning, barking orders and making changes to a $3.4 million pitch proposal. She was in control. Fierce. Untouchable. Until her phone buzzed. Veronica furrowed her brow. That was fast. She answered. "This is Veronica Hastings." "Good morning, Ms. Hastings," a calm, friendly male voice said. "My name is Mr. Carter. I'm a 5th grade teacher here at Westbrook Elementary." Veronica's heart skipped. "Yes. Is everything okay with Mason?" There was a short pause on the other end. "Well, it seems Mason may have been dropped off at the wrong school this morning." Veronica stood up, her hand gripping the edge of her desk. "Excuse me." "I know it sounds odd," Mr. Carter said, his tone still kind. "But this is Westbrook Elementary, public school. According to Mason's paperwork, and based on the uniform he's wearing, he's actually enrolled at Westbrook Academy. That's the private school about 15 minutes from here." Veronica's breath caught in her throat. She'd sent her only son to the wrong school. "Oh my God," she whispered, suddenly feeling very small in her massive office. Mr. Carter chuckled lightly. "No worries. He's settled in just fine. Very polite, very bright. I just figured I should let you know before the day goes on." She collapsed into her chair, completely thrown off. I don't even know how that happened. I confirmed everything last night." "It's an easy mix-up," he said. The names are almost identical. Happens more than you'd think. Veronica rubbed her temples. I can come pick him up. If you'd like, Mr. Carter replied. Or he can stay the day. It's not a problem at all. Honestly, he's a joy. There was something comforting about the way this man spoke. Not rushed. Not judgmental. Just, kind. It was rare. Especially in her world. Veronica glanced at the clock. She had a meeting in 10 minutes. A room full of men waiting to debate her authority. And yet, all she could think about was the soft voice on the other end of the line. Mr. Carter. Would it be all right, she asked hesitantly, if I stopped by during lunch? I'd like to meet you and see how Mason's doing. Of course, he said. We'd be happy to have you. She hung up and sat still, the hum of her office suddenly drowned out by the storm outside and the pounding in her chest. A mistake had brought her son to the wrong school. But that wrong school just might change everything. Because on the other side of that rain-soaked morning stood a young teacher named Carter Miles. And neither of them knew how far that one mistake would go. The rain had stopped by noon, but the clouds still hung low over the city like a heavy gray curtain. Veronica Hastings sat in her Escalade, parked just outside the modest chain-link fence of Westbrook Elementary. She had never been to a public school before, at least not as an adult. She stared at the building ahead of her, faded bricks, a dull green awning, and a rusted playground in the distance. She'd canceled 2 afternoon meetings, rescheduled a call with the Singapore team, and asked her assistant to bring lunch to her later. All because of a voice. Mr. Carter. The man had sounded warm. Calm. Not the kind of voice she was used to hearing in her high-pressure, dog-eat-dog world. Something about it lingered with her. Made her curious. She stepped out of the car in her navy pumps, adjusting her long beige coat. Her heels clicked awkwardly on the wet pavement as she approached the front doors. No valet. No buzzing security system. Just a small sign-in sheet and a lady at the front desk named Ms. Lorraine who offered her a warm smile. Here for Mason Hastings? Lorraine asked. Veronica nodded. Yes. I'm his mother. Mr. Carter's expecting you. He's in room 205, down the hallway, second door to your right. Veronica muttered a thank you and walked down the hallway. The walls were lined with handmade posters, alphabet charts, and finger paint drawings of animals and sunshine. The scent of crayons and disinfectant filled the air. What a far cry from the academy, she thought. There, everything was polished. Sterile. Prestigious. This place had heart. She reached room 205 and paused outside the door. Through the glass pane, she saw him. Mr. Carter. He stood at the front of the classroom, tall and lean, in a soft blue dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. A loosened navy tie hung around his neck. His skin was a warm caramel tone, and his hair was short and neatly trimmed. He was laughing with a group of students as he drew a goofy volcano on the whiteboard. Veronica's eyes scanned the room. And there was Mason, sitting front row, raising his hand. He looked happy. More engaged than she had seen him in weeks. She knocked lightly, and Mr. Carter turned toward the door. For a second, he paused. Then he smiled, a genuine, open smile that lit up his face. Miss Hastings, he called, walking over to open the door. Welcome. His voice in person was even softer, more grounding. Like he'd never been in a rush a day in his life. Veronica stepped in, suddenly aware of how overdressed she looked. Hi, sorry again for the confusion this morning. No need to apologize, he said, motioning toward the empty student chairs in the back. You're welcome to sit in for a bit, see how Mason's doing. She hesitated, then nodded. I'd like that. The kids barely noticed her as Mr. Carter turned back to them. All right, explorers, back to work. Finish your "What if the volcano exploded under your house" essays. 10 minutes. Laughter rippled through the room, and Veronica found herself smiling, too. She took a seat and watched. Mr. Carter walked between the desks, kneeling beside one student, high-fiving another. He never raised his voice. Just little phrases like, "You got this," and "I like how you're thinking," and "Show me more." And the kids bloomed under it. Even Mason. Especially Mason. When class ended, the students filed out in pairs for recess. Mason ran over to her. "Mom! Mr. Carter's so cool. Did you see him draw the giant cat with laser eyes?" Veronica laughed. "I did. It was impressive." Mason beamed. "Can I stay here? Just for today? Please." Before she could answer, Mr. Carter stepped closer. "It's no trouble at all. He fits in perfectly. But if you'd prefer, I can help you transfer him back to the academy by tomorrow." Veronica turned to him, unsure. "Honestly, I don't know yet." There was a brief silence between them. Then he said, "Would you like to talk in the lounge? I've got 20 minutes before my next class." Veronica hesitated again, but curiosity got the better of her. "Sure." The teacher's lounge was nothing like the executive conference rooms she was used to, no glass walls, no espresso machines, no leather chairs. Just a microwave, a fridge covered in magnets, and mismatched mugs. They sat across from each other at a small table, sipping from paper cups. "I've been teaching here 7 years, Mr. Carter began. It's not the fanciest school, but we care. A lot." "I can see that," Veronica said quietly. He looked at her. "Why Westbrook Academy?" "It's across town." "It's what people like me do," she admitted. "We send our kids to the schools that look good on resumes. That guarantee Ivy Leagues." He raised an eyebrow. "And does Mason care about Ivy League at age 10? Veronica chuckled, then covered her mouth. "Probably not. He just wants to draw superheroes and build Lego cities." "Then maybe today's mistake wasn't such a bad thing," Mr. Carter said with a smile. She stared at him. "You know, I usually don't like people challenging me." "I'm not challenging," he said gently. "Just offering perspective." Their eyes met again. And for the first time in a long while, Veronica felt seen, not as a CEO, not as a decision-maker. Just as a mom. There was a strange pause between them. Comfortable. Charged. Then her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it, 6 missed calls from her assistant. "I should go," she said, rising slowly. "Of course. Mason can stay the day. I'll come pick him up after school." Mr. Carter nodded. "We'll take good care of him." As she turned to leave, he called out, "Miss Hastings." She looked back. Sometimes the wrong address leads to the right door. She didn't say anything, but her lips curled into the smallest smile before she walked away. And as the classroom door shut behind her, neither of them realized that her world was about to change in ways no spreadsheet could predict. Veronica Hastings arrived at the Westbrook Elementary pickup lane 15 minutes before the bell rang, which was something she never did at the academy. Usually, the nanny or driver handled it. But today felt different. She had spent the afternoon in her glass office, unable to focus. Charts blurred, reports lost meaning, and phone calls felt hollow. All she could think about was the small classroom, the mismatched chairs, Mason's bright eyes, and Mr. Carter's voice echoing in her head. Sometimes the wrong address leads to the right door. Those words haunted her in the best way. As the final bell rang, children poured out of the school building like a river, laughter and backpacks bouncing in the air. Mason spotted her first. "Mom," he shouted, running toward the SUV with his sketchbook waving over his head. "Mr. Carter said I can be the lead in the school play if I sign up." Veronica opened the door and smiled. The lead? Already? I get to wear a wizard cape. Impressive, she said, ruffling his hair. You okay with staying at this school for a bit longer? Mason looked out the window as she drove. It's not fancy. But it's fun. And Mr. Carter talks to me like I'm smart. Not just a kid. Veronica's grip tightened slightly on the steering wheel. That evening, as she tucked Mason into bed, his sketchbook on the pillow beside him, she sat there a moment longer. You like him, huh? She asked. Mr. Carter. Mason yawned. Yeah. He's cool. But don't worry, Mom, I still like you too. She chuckled. Thanks for the vote of confidence. Then she kissed his forehead, turned off the lights, and quietly stepped out of his room. But sleep wouldn't come easy for her that night. She stared at the ceiling for hours, questions echoing louder than any boardroom debate. Why did today feel so different? Why did Carter Miles make her feel human again? The next day at work, things didn't go as planned. Veronica stepped into the elevator with two junior executives, who froze mid-conversation when she entered. But she'd already heard enough. Heard she showed up at a public school. Guess the Iron Queen has a soft side. Probably just a PR stunt, the other snickered. No way she'd send her kid to a school like that on purpose. Veronica said nothing, but their words sat with her like stones. At lunch, her board VP, Ellen Marks, cornered her in the executive lounge. You're all over the parent boards today, Ellen said, sipping her green juice. What do you mean? Ellen pulled out her phone and showed her a post, a blurry photo of Veronica walking into Westbrook Elementary. Caption, CEO of Hastings Ventures seen at public school. PR move or parenting fail? Comments poured in below, some mocking, some cruel. People love to eat the powerful, Ellen said. Might want to fix that little mix-up fast. Veronica forced a smile. Thanks for the heads up. But the more people tried to steer her away from Westbrook, the more she found herself drawn to it. That Friday, she returned to the school again, this time for Open Classroom Day. Parents were invited to observe, engage, and meet the faculty. Veronica arrived early, this time in jeans and a casual blouse. She didn't want to stand out. She wanted to blend in. Room 205 buzzed with energy. Mason was already at his desk, building a solar system model from foam balls and glitter. Mr. Carter stood near the window, helping another student balance the rings of Saturn. He spotted her and smiled. Back again, Ms. Hastings. Call me Veronica today, she said, slipping into the chair beside Mason. Then it's Carter, he replied with a grin. As the day unfolded, she watched Carter move like magic around the room. He knew every child's name, their strengths, their quirks. He read a short story aloud, his voice rich, animated, alive, and even Veronica found herself hanging on to every word. At lunch break, while the kids were outside, she and Carter found themselves alone at the back of the room. You don't look like the boardroom today, he said, gesturing to her relaxed clothes. I needed a break from people trying to tell me who I'm supposed to be. He nodded. That can be exhausting. Veronica hesitated. I know I don't seem like the kind of parent who shows up. I've always hidden behind my work. After my husband left, I didn't have time to process anything. I built the company to protect Mason. To protect myself. Carter leaned back against the desk. And now? I'm not sure anymore, she admitted. This place, these kids, you, make me question everything. Silence sat between them like an unspoken truth. Then Veronica added, almost shyly, I keep thinking about what you said. About the wrong door. Carter's gaze softened. Sometimes wrong turns show you the map. Before she could answer, a group of kids rushed in shouting, Mr. Carter. Mr. Carter. Jenny got her foot stuck in the soccer net again. He chuckled, excused himself, and walked off to play hero. And Veronica sat there, realizing, she hadn't smiled this much in years. That evening, Mason handed her a permission slip. "What's this?" she asked. "Mr. Carter invited parents to the school play next week," he said excitedly. "You're coming, right?" "Of course I am." "Oh. And he said he hopes you're sitting in the front row." Veronica raised an eyebrow. "He said that?" Mason nodded, already lost in his comic book. Veronica turned the slip over in her hands, her heart doing a strange flutter she couldn't quite control. But before she could even unpack that feeling, her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. "Hello." A sharp, formal voice snapped through the line. "Ms. Hastings, this is Principal Dorsey from Westbrook Academy. We've received word that your son Mason has not been attending as expected. If he's not present on Monday, we will consider his slot forfeit, and the waitlist will be activated." Veronica froze. Monday. That was her deadline. Stay with the elite, or let the spot go, and stay at a place that made her son feel seen. The call ended, and she just sat there in the silence. Suddenly, her perfect plan wasn't so perfect anymore. And if she chose Westbrook Elementary? It wouldn't just change her son's life. It might change her heart, too. Monday morning arrived with no easy answers. Veronica sat at the kitchen island, watching the steam rise from her untouched cup of coffee. Mason, dressed in his usual public school polo, ran around the house looking for his shoes and babbling about costume fittings for the school play. But her mind wasn't on volcano props or glitter capes. It was on a single sentence from the call on Friday. "If he's not present on Monday, we will consider his slot forfeit." Westbrook Academy wasn't just a school. It was a statement. A symbol of status. Her colleagues sent their kids there. Her board respected it. Her image, carefully built over a decade of sacrifice, was polished around those kinds of decisions. But that image was starting to feel like someone else's reflection. "Mason," she said gently, "what if we tried going back to Westbrook Academy today?" He stopped in his tracks, one shoe in his hand. "Why?" "It's where you were originally enrolled. Remember? The one with the glass buildings and big auditorium." Mason's face fell. "But I already told Mr. Carter I'm helping with props. And I promised to sit next to Jenny at lunch. And," he paused, "and Mr. Carter said I was doing great." Her heart pinched. Mr. Carter said I was doing great. No one had said that to her in years, not even her board. Certainly not her ex-husband. And definitely not her own parents. "Okay," she said softly. "Let's stick with what feels right." Mason beamed, shoved his feet into his sneakers, and rushed out the door. She followed moments later, heart pounding. She had just chosen the wrong school. Again. And she didn't regret it. Later that morning, after dropping Mason off and answering a string of work emails, Veronica drove to a small bookstore downtown. It was cozy, quiet, off the radar. She browsed through the education section and eventually found herself flipping through children's books. And that's when she saw it. Magic Beneath the Ashes, A Volcano Tale. A children's novel written and illustrated by none other than Carter Miles. She blinked. He never mentioned it. Not once. And yet here it was, his name printed boldly across a glowing orange cover, with a smiling volcano on the front. She flipped to the back. Carter Miles is a fifth-grade teacher who believes imagination can build bridges where education alone cannot. This is his first published book. Something shifted inside her. He wasn't just a teacher. He was a storyteller. A creator. Someone who poured love into the things most people ignored. She bought the book, tucked it into her bag, and drove straight to Westbrook Elementary. This time, she wasn't there to observe. She was there to say thank you. Mr. Carter was stacking science journals in the classroom when she walked in. He looked up, surprised. "Veronica." "Hi," she said, pulling the book out of her purse. "You never told me you were an author." His face flushed. "You found that?" "I bought 3 copies," she smiled. "One for Mason, one for our office library, and one for myself." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I self-published it last year. Didn't think anyone really noticed." "I noticed," she said, her voice quiet. "Anne. I wanted to talk." He motioned toward the window table, and they sat. She hesitated, fingers lightly tracing the cover of the book. "Do you know what it's like to be in control all the time?" she asked. "To have everyone expect perfection from you, always." Carter nodded but said nothing. "I built my company from scratch," she continued. "After my divorce, I didn't cry, I strategized. While everyone pitied me, I was pitching seed investors. I stopped going to PTA meetings. I hired a driver, a tutor, and a chef. I created a perfect image so no one could ever say I'd failed." "But," he asked gently. "But. I missed bedtime stories. I missed drawing volcanoes. I missed seeing my son's eyes light up when someone believed in him." "You saw him. You gave him what I forgot to give him." "You gave him a future," Carter said. "I just gave him crayons." "No, Carter," she said, her voice tight. "You gave him something I couldn't fake. You gave him your time. Your kindness. Your faith." There was a long silence between them. "I'm afraid," she finally admitted. "Afraid that if I keep choosing what feels right, I'll lose everything I've built." Carter leaned forward. "Then let me ask you something." She looked up. "What if what you've built wasn't the destination, but the launch pad?" She frowned. "What do you mean?" "You spent years creating something powerful. But maybe it was never meant to be a fortress. Maybe it was meant to give you the freedom to finally live." Veronica's chest rose and fell slowly. His words hit deeper than any shareholder report ever had. "Why do you do this?" she asked. "Teach?" "Yes. Pour so much into these kids when you could have done anything." Carter smiled. "Because someone once did that for me. I grew up in a neighborhood no one remembered. But my 5th grade teacher taught me how to draw, how to write, and how to speak up. She saved my life. I figured it's only right to pay it forward." Tears prickled at the corner of Veronica's eyes, but she blinked them away. Then, impulsively, she said, "Would you, maybe like to get coffee sometime? Off school grounds?" He paused. Then smiled. "I'd like that." Before either of them could say more, the bell rang, and Mason ran in holding a cardboard box full of glitter. "Mr. Carter. I finished the volcano headpiece." "Awesome." Carter stood up. "Let's go set it up." Veronica turned to leave but looked back once more. There was something powerful, something healing, about this small classroom, this young teacher, and the unexpected twist that had pulled her life off course. She smiled to herself as she walked toward the car. Then her phone buzzed. It was a board member. "Are you coming to the emergency shareholder vote tonight?" Veronica sighed. Reality was still waiting. But her heart was no longer in the same place. She looked back at the school one last time. The vote could wait. Because somewhere between the math worksheets, glitter-covered volcanoes, and a children's book written by a teacher who believed in magic, Veronica Hastings had discovered something no boardroom could offer. A second chance. The evening of the school play arrived with the kind of quiet anticipation that made Veronica's heart beat faster than any corporate merger ever had. She stood in front of her mirror, smoothing out a simple emerald green dress, one she hadn't worn in years. It wasn't designer. It wasn't for show. It was warm, soft, and, oddly enough, made her feel human. In the next room, Mason practiced his lines in a booming wizard voice, then broke into giggles. Thunder. Lightning. Bacon. Wait, was that in the script? She laughed from the doorway. I'm pretty sure bacon wasn't part of your spell, kiddo. Mr. Carter said I could add a surprise. Mason grinned. He said good stories always keep people guessing. She smiled to herself. So does life, she thought. The Westbrook Elementary auditorium was far from glamorous. The folding chairs wobbled, the stage lights flickered slightly, and the red curtain had a mysterious ketchup stain on one side. But none of that mattered. The place was packed. Parents squeezed into rows, holding up phones. Kids bounced in their seats. Teachers shuffled props behind the scenes. And when Veronica walked in, people noticed. But not because she was a CEO. Because she was there. Present. No assistant. No driver. No clipboard. Just her. Carter spotted her from backstage and gave a small wave. He was dressed in black slacks and a button-down shirt with sleeves rolled up again, clipboard in hand. He looked calm, but she could tell he was nervous. Big night, she said when he came over to check the mic. The kids are ready, he replied. I'm just praying the volcano doesn't fall apart mid-scene. I heard there might be bacon involved. Carter chuckled. That part was not approved. I'm letting creative chaos win tonight. Their eyes met. The air between them buzzed gently, warm, unspoken, full. Then the lights dimmed. It was time. The show began with laughter and applause as the curtain opened on a cardboard volcano and a sparkling lake made of blue cellophane. Mason entered the stage in a long purple robe, his wizard hat slightly too big for his head. I am Vulcaner, master of explosions and eater of breakfast. The crowd erupted with laughter. Through it all, Veronica's smile never faded. But she wasn't just watching the play. She was watching Mason glow. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't just performing. He was alive. Confident. Fearless. And that was because of one person. Carter. She glanced toward the side of the stage where he knelt with a flashlight and cue sheet, gently mouthing encouragements to each student who stepped on stage. He wasn't just a teacher. He was their anchor. Their light. Their safe space. After the final scene, when Vulcaner saved the village using a peace spell and a breakfast sandwich, the kids took their bows to roaring applause. Veronica stood with the other parents, clapping so hard her hands stung. Carter stepped forward to thank everyone and announced cookies and juice in the cafeteria. Veronica moved with the crowd, but Carter stopped her at the edge of the hallway. You really came, he said, his voice quiet beneath the noise. I told Mason I'd sit front row. I don't break promises. They stood close now, just outside the glare of the stage lights. Carter looked at her, something shifting behind his calm eyes. You were the only parent who laughed at the bacon line, he said. I'm learning to let go a little. He tilted his head. And what does Veronica Hastings want, when she's not building empires? She looked up at him. For once, she said slowly, I want to build something that doesn't need spreadsheets. Something real. Carter's voice was barely a whisper now. So do I. Then he leaned in, slowly, deliberately, and she met him halfway. It wasn't a showy kiss. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. Warm. Honest. And when they pulled apart, neither of them said a word. Because everything that needed to be said, was already understood. A week later, Veronica attended her first ever Westbrook PTA meeting. She brought homemade muffins, though they came from a bakery, and she confessed it within 5 seconds. She laughed more. Smiled more. Checked her phone less. And she kept showing up. Not as a CEO. As a mom. As a woman learning how to choose her heart over her habit. Mason stayed at Westbrook. He stopped asking about the academy. And Veronica stopped justifying why. At the next board meeting, someone asked her about the photo of her at the public school that went viral again. "I thought Hastings Ventures was about premium image," one member sneered. "Not playground visits." Veronica simply smiled. "Actually, our image should start with substance. And that's what I found, when I stopped chasing perfect, and started choosing real." The room went quiet. She didn't flinch. She didn't need their approval anymore. Because she'd already found something richer than their applause. A life with her son. And a man who built volcanoes out of paper and love. 1 year later, Mason won the school's Creative Thinker Award. He credited it to "the teacher who let me add bacon to my lines." Veronica now served as a board advisor to improve funding for local public schools. Her life looked different. Slower. Quieter. Better. And as for Carter, he wrote a second book. This time, the dedication read, "To the woman who walked through the wrong door, and changed everything I believed about love." If you like this story, comment, share and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.